You know him as the guy who talks to the camera, the star who breaks the fourth wall, but he's also the guy who's breaking into the boardroom. Today, we're digging into the incredible story of how Ryan Reynolds turned a string of box office bombs into a billion-dollar empire. Let's get into it.
And let's just start with a number that puts it all into perspective. $6.6 billion. That is the total worldwide box office for movies where he's the leading man. It's just a massive, massive figure.
Of course, for millions, maybe billions of people, he is this guy, Deadpool, the merc with a mouth. This was the role that completely redefined his career, rocketing him from a well-known actor to a genuine global superstar. This was everything. But how did he actually get here? Because putting on that red suit, well, it wasn't a straight shot. It was a long, winding road filled with some pretty major speed bumps along the way. So to really understand why that success was so sweet, we've got to go back, way back. We need to look at the long, long grind that came before all the glory. See, his career didn't just explode out of the gate. It was more of a slow burn. It started with a Canadian teen soap back in the 90s. Then he made a name for himself on sitcoms. Then he became the king of the college comedy with movies like Van Wilder. He was that charming, funny guy, which led to big rom-com hits like The Proposal. He was definitely a star, but he was kind of stuck in a very specific box. And being a rom-com king is one thing, right? But being a global, box office-shattering draw, that's a whole other level. And in Hollywood, to make that jump, there was pretty much one answer. You needed a superhero cape. The thing is, his first few attempts at wearing a cape were, well, let's just say they were less than heroic. From a side role in Blade Trinity to whatever that was in X-Men Origins, the projects just completely missed what made him so good, that sarcastic wit. And he knew it. He was a massive fan of the Deadpool comics, and he was so frustrated seeing them get the character completely wrong. So this is the key. Even way back then, he was already fighting behind the scenes for the real Deadpool. But before he could fix that, he took one more huge swing at the superhero piñata. He was cast as Green Lantern, a massive DC blockbuster with a 9-figure budget. This was supposed to be it. This was his coronation. Instead, it was a complete and total train wreck. Critics hated it, the box office was a disaster. And look, for most actors, this would have been the end of their superhero dreams. You just don't get that many chances. But this is where the story pivots. For Ryan Reynolds, that epic failure became the launch pad for his greatest success. He basically decided, okay, forget it. I'm taking the wheel myself. And this wasn't a quick fix. We're talking about more than 10 years of him pushing, fighting, and championing a movie that was actually true to the comics. R-rated, fourth wall breaking, the whole shebang. And to do that, he had to convince the studio to do a reboot. To essentially just pretend that version from the Wolverine movie never even happened, and let him start totally fresh. Create a story that the actual fans would recognize and, not hate. And the result of all that effort? Absolute, total validation. On a pretty small budget for a superhero film, Deadpool just exploded. It became a cultural phenomenon, pulling in nearly $800 million worldwide. And what's really cool is how critics totally understood why it worked. This review from IGN just nails it. They said he was charismatic, exuberant, larger than life. It wasn't just a role he was playing. He simply was Deadpool. So, he finally conquered the box office. Mission accomplished, right? Not even close. Reynolds used that incredible momentum not just to get more acting jobs, but to build something much, much bigger. And he moved so fast. The success of Deadpool wasn't just a career boost. It was seed money for a full-on business blitz. In just a few years, he's got his own production company, he's buying into Aviation Gin, Mint Mobile, and then, completely out of left field, a Welsh soccer club. And this is where his real genius comes out. He wasn't just a famous face slapping his name on a product. He was the creative force behind the marketing. He made these hilarious, self-aware ads that people actually wanted to watch, and it led to these massive buyouts with just staggering profits. But maybe his most famous venture is Wrexham. What started as a wild idea with his friend Rob McElhenney turned into this incredible Emmy-winning docuseries. They didn't just buy a team, they genuinely invested in a whole community, and they've earned so much praise for how they've embraced it all. So, okay, he's a movie star. He's a business tycoon. But what is it about the man himself? What's the secret sauce that makes all of this work so incredibly well? I think this really gets to the core of his appeal. You have this snarky, crude on-screen persona, but then his off-screen reputation is as a dedicated family man, a huge philanthropist, and just one of the genuinely nicest guys in Hollywood. The one constant that ties it all together? That brilliant, self-deprecating humor. But it isn't all just punchlines. A huge part of his brand and what makes him so compelling is his vulnerability. He's been incredibly open about his personal struggles, and that just adds this whole other layer to his public persona. And I mean, this quote is just so powerful. He's talked openly about his lifelong battle with anxiety, to the point where he's admitted he would do interviews as Deadpool just to have a mask to cope with his fears. It's so honest, and it makes him so much more human and relatable. So that brings us here. He's conquered Hollywood, he's mastered marketing, he's become this beloved hero to a small Welsh town. Where does he possibly go from here? Honestly, it seems like the only limit for Ryan Reynolds is his own imagination. What do you think is next?